Great. All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming today. This is, I think, the third in the Unlocking the Mysteries of the Dean's Office series that we've been running. I'm Kim Kurtis. I'm Associate Dean for Faculty Development and Scholarship. I've been in this role for for 5 years, and I've had the pleasure of working with great staff in the college office. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Terry Lee. I'm Assistant Dean in College of Engineering. I've been in up to 11 years overseeing the promotion training process for the college.
And I think I'm the 5th or 4th Associate Dean you've worked with. 4th.
You're my, well, 4th, because you left and came back.
So, Terry knows everything.
And I'm Linda House, Director of HR in the Dean's Office.
Great. Well, thanks you two for being here today. If I get hard questions, I'm deflecting them down there. All right. So thought I would start off just by sharing with you some of the responsibilities of this office. Our primary objective is really about self-actualization for our faculty, really positioning our faculty and giving them the resources that they need to be their most successful selves. What does that involve? Well, some of the nuts and bolts, we really are intimately involved in guiding the promotion and tenure process, and that's for both academic and research faculty. Did that go down?
Yeah.
You can still hear me? Okay. We also do a lot of faculty development outside of the promotion process. I'll talk a little bit today about a mentoring program that we have in the College of Engineering. But we also do more one-on-one faculty development, things like leadership training opportunities and so forth. We also work with your schools on developing faculty hiring strategies, and I'll talk a bit about that. And then we also coordinate nominations with awards. I'll share some data on our awards nominations for our major external awards. And then I think probably the least fun part of the job, or maybe the most difficult, is when we do have grievances that are brought up, working through those through our processes and procedures at Georgia Tech. And so we do get involved in those when they involve faculty. And then finally, we coordinate across campus on things like international issues as they relate to faculty. And then we also work on just really trying to tie our faculty in with whatever educational and research initiatives are new at the Institute, just trying to build awareness and making sure that COE is well engaged and well represented. And at any point, please stop me and ask questions. I only plan to speak for maybe 20 minutes, leaving plenty of time for questions at the end, but I don't mind being interrupted. So I thought I would share with you some numbers. The College of Engineering, in terms of faculty, is the largest on Georgia Tech's campus. We're not the largest in the country, but we are very large compared to the other colleges here at Georgia Tech. In addition to 460 tenured or tenure track faculty, we also have 30 academic professionals, 34 lecturers, and over 220 research faculty. So it's a very, very large cohort of people that this office works with. And so there's promotion tracks for each of those categories of professionals. And so I'm showing those here. And this office works with tenure track faculty, professional track academic faculty, and research faculty as they work their way through the ranks. And what does this mean? It means that we meet with faculty one-on-one and help them evaluate their CV and their promotion packages. We work with the schools in developing their processes and procedures and guidelines for evaluating those packages. We work with faculty affairs at the provost level in terms of refining and defining what those processes and procedures look like. We form the committees at the college level that evaluate these cases as they move forward. So we're intimately involved in all of these aspects as the package goes from the school level all the way up to the institute level at each of these ranks. So I don't know if everybody recognized that this office did more than tenured track faculty. So I thought I would share with you just a sample timeline, just to let you know why it's important to have somebody like Terry with the knowledge and experience she has in this position. This is a timeline showing evaluation step points for a tenure track faculty member. And you can see it looks a little bit complicated. You can see that we've got a critical review that happens during the 3rd year, then there's tenure. It happens It can happen actually over a range of years, and if a faculty member comes in, in the spring versus the fall, there can be some questions as to when they go up. For tenure, when are they required, when are they eligible, and the differences between those. And then promotion to full professor, there's not a set time for that. So, when are they eligible versus when is the right time based upon criteria. And then we've also got periodic peer review, which happens after tenure every 5 years. So we work a lot with faculty and with school chairs and RPT committees, both on tenure track and professional track and research track, trying to understand when a faculty member is eligible for each of these promotion steps, when is the right time based upon objective assessment of their package materials, and then providing feedback so that we can decide to move forward with a promotion at that time, or perhaps there's some additional professional development that can be done in order to put the faculty member in a better position to go forward for promotion in the next year or two. So it looks complicated, and Terry's there to untangle all of these complications. Grateful to have her. And then in terms of how the packages are evaluated, I thought I would just show 2 examples. So the processes start at the school level. Here I'm showing for critical review, which happens during the 3rd year, and then for promotion and tenure, and these are for tenure track faculty. But the processes are similar for academic and research faculty. So the candidate is responsible for submitting their materials, and we'll work with them before they submit materials, again, to make sure they follow institute guidelines, but also represent the accomplishments of the faculty member in the best way possible. Because that package will be viewed by people that they report to within the institute, and then also others who may have not ever met the candidate before. So you want to make sure that it's a very clear articulation of what their contributions and the impact of those contributions are. So it will be viewed by school chairs, deans, the provost, the president. In some cases, depending on what level the faculty member is going for promotion, we even have outside letter writers. And so it'll go outside of the institute. So it's an opportunity for us to show all the great things Georgia Tech is doing, but in a different forum. Okay, so we want to make sure that those packages look really good. So we work with the candidates and the schools in terms of the package submission. And then there's usually some kind of a level review where they're either being evaluated, on research and scholarship, or for academic or lecturer faculty. We have review of teaching and educational contributions. And then there's a school committee that's formed, and they vote. The school chair votes. Actually, I should mention, the area committee does not vote, but they write a letter. School committee votes and writes a letter. School chair votes and writes a letter. Then it goes to the college. The college sees everything that came before. We form a college committee with advice from the dean and the school chairs. They will review all the materials up to that point. They will vote and write a letter explaining their decision. Then the dean will decide on his vote and will write a letter. Then it goes to the institute. The institute committee is composed of the deans and a faculty member or 2 from each of the colleges. They will review the package, discuss it, vote, and they write a very short letter. All of this is in advice to the president. So none of these are, binding votes. Goes to the president makes a decision, and then the letter goes back to the candidate, either a yes or a no vote. And so anybody who's gone through promotion here at Georgia Tech, right? Yeah. It takes a long time, right? It seems like an inordinate amount of time sometimes, but this is why. There are many, many steps for review, and I think it's very important to recognize that this is a carefully crafted, well thought out process, and the interest here is to make it as fair, equitable, and transparent as possible.
I'm just curious when you get the external letters, the area committee doesn't see those?
No, they do not. Yeah. So the area committee is just evaluating the materials a candidate submits, and it's actually just the CV. They have a 5-page statement, and then the 5 sample intellectual products. That's all that they see.
If there's a vote of no at any stage, does it move on or does it stop?
That's a nuanced question. So generally, the procedure is that it would continue to go, but there are cases where a school chair may feel that it's not serving the candidate to continue the case, so there can sometimes be some discussion about whether this is truly the right time for the candidate to go forward. And so there are rules for all of this. It's very, very clear rules. I'm just showing an example of some language that comes out of the faculty handbook. So we follow rules both set here at Georgia Tech, that we have meetings in this very room that vote on changes to the faculty handbook that governs all of our promotion procedures. And there are also rules set by the USG. And so we conform to all of those. These are the rules here for tenure. It's kind of short considering how monumental something like tenure is. All right, and then there are also guidelines in the faculty handbook for all of the promotion steps. Here I'm showing them for academic professionals. And that role of a principal academic professional is relatively new. And so as I mentioned before, we have some guiding principles as we work through all of these processes. Really transparency, making sure everybody knows the rules, everybody understands what the timeline is. That's really critical for minimizing stress on those that are going up for promotion. And then we try to ensure that the process is as equitable as possible and as consistent as possible. So there are not big changes year to year, keeping everything the same, but also being progressive in terms of our viewpoint are very important considerations that we balance. We try to ensure diverse representation on all of our committees. Talk a little bit more about some additional things that we do to train our committees as they evaluate these promotion materials. And then a cornerstone for everything we do here is really the best of the best. Georgia Tech aspires to really attract and retain the best of the best among its faculty and staff. And so excellence is at the cornerstone of everything that we do. And so a lot of people get stressed out when we talk about promotion tenure, so I try and provide some reassuring data. These are some recent outcomes. It's over a 5-year period of how many were successful versus unsuccessful at different promotion steps. And the red little bars here, I know you probably can't see the numbers from back there, represent the unsuccessful cases. And I think a lot of universities may pride themselves on, we only tenure a certain percentage of our faculty, and they wear that as a badge of honor. We're a state institution. We don't have resources to just to create 3 faculty positions with the idea that we're only going to retain 1. If you're hired at Georgia Tech, it's because we believe in you. We believe that you have what it takes to be successful here. I like to believe that we give you the resources, including mentoring, that you need in order to be successful. And so we're actually quite proud of the fact that more than 90%, close to 95% of our faculty who go up for tenure are tenured. So these success rates are something I'm quite proud of, just as a faculty member here. So after you get tenure as a faculty member at Georgia Tech, there's something called periodic peer review, or PPR is what we call it. It runs on a slightly different calendar than tenure. It'll happen a bit later this fall, but every 5 years, our tenured faculty are reevaluated on their performance. And it's an opportunity really for faculty to take a step back. They put together a summary of what their accomplishments have been in terms of scholarship, teaching and educational contributions, and also professional service, and just sort of assess where they are. Are they making progress? Are they proud of their accomplishments? Where do they see themselves in 5 years? And so there's an opportunity as they put together this PPR package to sort of set some goals and articulate them in a way that their peers can assess them. So in this process, there is no, college level committee, there's no institute level committee. This is all held within the school. There are no outside letters. So it really is an opportunity for the faculty member to reflect on their career at that point, envision what it could look like in 5 years, set some goals, and then have those evaluated by peers within the school. The only time we really get involved is sometimes a faculty member is found to be not making good progress in an area or two, and that's as judged by their peers. And so this office in the college will meet with the faculty member, the school chair, and the dean, and we'll craft a plan for how to address any deficiencies that were noted. And sometimes there are additional resources that can be provided to help the faculty develop in that particular area. Or because we're big enough as a College of Engineering, it may be that at this time the faculty member believes that they want to shift away from an area where they're not doing so well, but perhaps they have strengths in some other areas. And so this could be a time for the faculty member to reassess where they are and think about growing and expanding in other areas. So it's It's a valuable tool. I know it creates some stress for some faculty, but we largely leave this to the schools and only come in when the peer evaluation recommends that there be some changes in path. We also review school chairs. Oh, question.
Could you say just a word or two more about the outcomes of the PPR, your 5-year, 3-year, and just kind of nuances around that?
Right, so after the PPR review, which is done, the school chair will write a letter and provides the annual reviews to the PPR committee, which is at the school level. The PPR committee ultimately makes the recommendation about either a 5-year reappointment, which is regular, or in some cases, they will recommend a 3-year reappointment, meaning that the faculty member will have to come back in 3 years and be reevaluated. Sometimes the faculty member will at that point decide, you know, I'm really enjoying teaching a lot. I think I could have greater impact by focusing more on educational initiatives, maybe even do things at a national or international level, and I want to step back from my research. So that would be a time where the faculty member would then develop a plan for the next 3 years moving forward. And then instead of on the 5-year track, they would be reassessed in 3 years. There are very rare instances where the faculty member, after that first 3 years, is maybe not able to accomplish what they had set out to do. In that case, when they go through PPR, they could get another 3-year reappointment, giving them another chance to re-articulate their vision. There are rare instances where tenure has been revoked, but I can't remember the last time that has happened. Terry will know. Ever? Yeah, a long time ago.
It's not really revoked, an exit plan.
There's an exit plan, okay. So maybe a soft landing.
You mentioned that also through this process it's an opportunity for the faculty to reinvent themselves and maybe focus on a different area. What about sabbatical though? There is no official program of sabbatical, but this would be a great opportunity for faculty to go away in a specialty lab.
I agree, and I'll talk about some sabbatical opportunities further down the line. The USG does not recognize sabbatical, but we do have faculty professional development leaves of absence, and we have at any one time dozens of faculty who are doing professional development leaves of absence. There are different ways to fund things like that. A lot of our faculty may go and embed themselves in industry for a semester or a year and be funded that way. Others are doing startups. Others will seek external funding, like a Fulbright scholarship, to go and work in another lab, or they'll get funding from a national lab and will go work there in the summer or for a semester or a year. Some of our schools do have professional development leaves of absence embedded in the school, meaning that the school has structured its teaching in a way such that faculty on a regular schedule will have a semester off from teaching. And so I believe ECE does that. Civil has a program they've been trying to launch for a while that way. I think, does chemical engineering have one, perhaps? A number of the schools run them internally, and what that means is that the faculty member has a semester off from teaching and they can use that to go and engage in research or learn new teaching tools elsewhere. But it certainly is, I think, a very, very useful tool in terms of reinventing yourself or even just reinvigorating yourself as a scholar. So we also do school chair reviews every 5 years. Our office is primarily involved at the outset of that review, giving some structure to how the evaluation takes place. And these are for school chairs who want to do a second term. And so they're evaluated by all of the stakeholders. That means students, faculty, staff, alumni, external advisory board members, other school chairs. And feedback is then given to the dean, and the dean ultimately will work with the school chair to decide if a second 5-year term is in the best interest of the school and the college and Georgia Tech. I think this year we've got Edwin Romaine in ISYE going through 3rd-year review. So Kyriaki asked this question. It's ironic, I've got your photo here. We talked about faculty development at the individual level. So there are opportunities here to do, let's see, international initiatives. I'm showing here Fulbright. We've got one faculty member this fall going, I believe, to Norway on a Fulbright fellowship, but there are lots of fellowship programs available out there where faculty can apply and get funding to go work with outside collaborators. We also provide some support, sometimes along with the schools, for faculty to engage in professional development that they design or through other programs. One example here is Kyriaki took part last year, I believe it was last year, in the ELATES program at Drexel, which is a leadership development program. But if you're interested in doing something like that, it's something you should talk with your school chair about, and there's some limited funding that can be provided to help with that type of professional development as well. And then we also track things like external award nominations, and I work with Ward Weiner and things like nominating faculty for National Academies meetings, for example. And I'm showing an example here of Carrie Watkins. And we track how those awards progress. So this is data from last academic year for each of our schools, the number of external, highly visible awards that they nominated faculty for versus, how many won, and then how many were still pending. And so this is not meant to say, oh, certain schools are better at actually winning the awards. I'm less interested in how successful the nominations are. I'm more interested in seeing how active the different school awards committees are. So how many nominations are they doing? And so this is feedback that we give to the school chairs that they can use to help set goals and maybe restaff their awards committees to make sure that they are, there's an engaged group of faculty and staff involved in those committees. We also do cohort mentoring, and so one program that I started when I joined this office was a new faculty mentoring program that's at the college level. We recognize that a lot of our schools do mentoring programs. I think doing something at the college is sort of a belt and suspenders approach, and I would also say that by doing something at the college level, it sends the message that we believe mentoring is really important. And so it spurred, I believe, greater activity at the school level. So at the college level, our mentoring programs for first and second year untenured faculty, they could be at the assistant or the associate professor level. It's an opportunity for them to meet other faculty in the College of Engineering, learn something about Georgia Tech philosophies on teaching, learn about grant writing, get tied in with funding agencies, learn how to grow a graduate student group culture, and so forth. Let's see what else. We also do joint meetings with College of Computing and College of Science, so it's another way to just get tied in more across campus. Last year, we also did a meeting for professional track faculty, and I think that's something that we'll do at least on an annual basis as well. We work also specifically with school chairs on opportunities for mid-career faculty mentoring. Last year, Rob Butera, who's Associate Dean for Research, and I hosted a forum where we brought in Robert Knotts and part of the team from DC, and they came in and talked about funding horizons under the Trump administration. So which agency should you be going to for funding, and what are some good topics for research there? So there's a number of different things that we're doing at the cohort level. Another thing that we get involved in is faculty recruitment and hiring. Here we're really looking at trying to attract the best of the best. We also really value that intersection of excellence and diversity. And so that's what the message that we try to send to our school chairs, and they impart those to the school hiring committees. Linda and I have also, with Doug Williams, developed a presentation and a toolkit that we bring to the school committees to help guide the hiring process. I work with the other associate deans and the dean in terms of identifying areas for strategic hiring that are interdisciplinary, that go across the schools. So Georgia Tech is sort of unusual in the number of cross-disciplinary hires that we do. So at a lot of other universities, it's very uncommon to have faculty who have these joint appointments. And I think at Georgia Tech, it's one of the things that makes us really unique is how interdisciplinary we are. We also track all of the hiring. We look at demographics and numbers, and we collect these all together in an annual report that the dean provides to the advanced team. They collect those. The advanced professors are the liaison with the vice president for Institute Diversity. And so they bring together data from all of the different colleges, and we're able to see what progress we're making in terms of the numbers of hires that we're able to successfully land. It's very competitive. And then how we're doing on diversity metrics as well. In addition, I meet with candidates. If candidates bring to us what we call a two-body opportunity, meaning they've got a spouse or a partner that requires employment in Atlanta, we work our network in order to help identify opportunities for that person. We can also provide resources for them to see an employment coach or mentor. And then more recently, we've become, especially this time of year, really involved in tenure on hire cases. So it used to be that if you had tenure at another university, Georgia Tech wanted you here for a year before they would consider giving you tenure. But within the last 5 or 6 years, it's become more common, especially for a peer institution, for a faculty member who has tenure there to move here and gain tenure upon hire. And so those packages need to be put together as they come in and then considered at the school level. They skip the college, although the dean has a vote, and then they go to the institute level for a vote. This is what our hiring process looks like. We start out with planning. We ask the schools every August to come up with a number of hires that they'd like, and it's always something like in the low 2 digits, right? It's a really big number. Like we need 8 new faculty in this school, and that goes to the dean. People like Doug, and look at the budget. We go to the provost. He looks at the budget, and then it goes back to the schools with the actual number that they've been allotted. The college may retain some of those slots for interdisciplinary hires, and the school chairs are all aware of that, and they work together actually very, very well on those interdisciplinary hires. From there, it goes to the search committee. Search committee is charged by the school chair typically, and they start trying to cultivate a very big pool of candidates. That can mean that they put out ads, they'll work their networks. There can be other ways to facilitate growing that pool of candidates and growing the diversity of that pool. There's usually various levels of interviews that happen. There may be some Skype interviews or phone interviews. Then a select number of candidates will come to campus. They'll meet with faculty in the school. If it's an interdisciplinary hire, it could be between the schools. Somebody from the dean's office meets with every interview candidate. And then from there, the school chairs will request a permission to hire. And then that gets approved all the way up to the provost's office. And then negotiations can begin. And this can we should make this as a timeline. We want to stretch this out. That can go on pretty long, just because there's always complicated fit-up needs. In Georgia Tech, we can be very space constrained. A lot of our hires have very specific requirements for their labs, and so that package portion can take some time. Plus, we're negotiating there with the dean's office, the provost's office, campus facilities, EVPR. There's a lot of different players involved there. Eventually, an offer goes to the candidate, and hopefully they accept. But we track all of this along the way. I can jump forward to this. So we're tracking data every year, what our pool looks like at the different stages and then how successful we are. And so this is an example of that advanced report data that is produced every year. I wanted to just say something about the pool. One thing we're really working to improve is the diversity of our faculty. But I wanted to just make a point about how difficult it is to attract a diverse pool of candidates. You may have heard of this narrowing pipeline in STEM fields, and it really does exist. So I'm showing demographics here from the American Society for Engineering Education, and just showing the percentage of new PhDs. This is 2017 data that are women, which is up at the top, and then underrepresented minorities here. It's a bit unique for engineering. Some of these other fields, the number of women in particular is more than the number of men, but in engineering it's only about 30%. And so creating a diverse pool can be very challenging, and especially in some specific areas. I think about aerospace engineering, electrical and computer engineering in particular, where the percentage of women PhDs is around 10%. So this is really what we're looking for, is that intersection of diversity and excellence in our faculty. This supports the Georgia Tech Strategic Plan, or language in the Georgia Tech Strategic Plan. And I like to share this article that was published in one of the most widely read journals, which is Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, which shows that diverse problem solvers actually can come up with more optimal solutions. All right. The other aspect that we work on is once faculty are on campus, we want to retain them. And so we work on family-friendly policies like active service modified duties. family leaves of absence, other benefits. We also track salary, so progression of faculty through the ranks, and try and make sure that faculty salaries remain equitably distributed and that they reflect some fairness. And so we do the survey as requested, but at least every 3 years, and we can identify outliers and make a case for adjustments if needed. Leaves of absence, here's a little. So we have a lot of faculty who are inspired to go out and do things outside of Georgia Tech, and you can leave without much rigmarole for 1 year. If you want to go for 2 years, there's a little bit more work that needs to be done. But they do various things. They might do a startup or work in industry. That's becoming increasingly common, particularly in some fields. We've got a lot of faculty who want to spend time on the West Coast in particular. And so we can facilitate that. There may be research engagements that they want to be involved in or new collaborations. I mentioned the Fulbright Scholarship, but there are other programs as well. So working in national labs is increasingly common. It can be a great way to develop new collaborations that also lead to new funding streams for research. And then there's also opportunities to teach abroad. We've got the campus in Metz, and we've got a new campus being developed in Shenzhen. Other things that we're doing in terms of diversifying our pipeline, Georgia Tech has a longstanding program called Focus that's held every MLK Day weekend, and I'm involved typically as a mentor at that, and the College of Engineering is very involved in organizing the Focus cohort. We have both fellows and scholars, so these are folks who are looking either to come to graduate school or are looking to become faculty members. And so that's hosted on campus every MLK Day weekend. This fall, we're also hosting another program in concert with the University of California at Berkeley and University of Michigan called Next Prof Nexus. And this is going to be bringing a cohort of 70 PhD students, postdocs, and early career scientists and engineers to Georgia Tech to help to do a workshop that tells them how to get a faculty position, training them on how to write things like your application materials, including your research and education statements. So we're really excited about hosting that. Another thing that we're hosting this November 6th and 8th is the CRLT Players. This is an acting troupe out of the University of Michigan. But what they do is they put on performances that help to develop and sustain a university culture that creates a learning environment in which diverse students and instructors can excel. And they've got a new program that's coming out in response to a National Academies report on sexual harassment. It's called Moving the Needle. And so they will be giving 2 performances on November 6th and 2 more on November 8th. They'll be at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. each day. The one on November 6th is really about creating awareness about what sexual harassment is. And according to this National Academies report, it's been broadened out to also consider gender harassment, which is something that not a lot of people associate with sexual harassment. So if you're interested in that topic or interested in improving the campus and college climate, I would mark November 6th at 10 and 2 on your calendar. And then there's another one on November 8th that's going to be bystander awareness training. So if you witness something that just doesn't feel right, teaching you the right language to use in order to make a difference. Wanted to just mention a couple things about strategic planning. You may be aware that the college, led by Steve, has been involved in strategic planning over the past year. I've been co-leading this with Raheem Villa with support from Georgia Tech Strategic Consulting and an outside consulting group, Greenway Strategy. We've also got faculty and staff represented from each of our schools, and we've been gathering data, talking to faculty, staff, students, alumni, external advisory board members, people in Atlanta and DC, all over the place, collecting lots and lots of data and ideas. I've been going around giving town halls in a lot of the schools along with Raheem and Steve. And from this, the college has drafted a new vision statement. And so this may be the first time you're seeing this. We're just starting to roll this out, so I will caution it's draft, still work in progress. I'll let you read and absorb this. Can everybody read it? Does it sound like us? I think some of the features that are unique to Georgia Tech are the ability to make impact at a big scale. We're big. This leadership thought leadership, and then our ability to prepare these inclusive and curiosity-driven engineers. I think those are real hallmarks. And then this word rigor is something that's commonly associated with Georgia Tech, right? All right, and so as we move on this, we've identified more details about our culture, or our values. We're inclusive, impactful, transformative, trailblazing, creative, and collaborative. So you'll start seeing this more and more. We're still rolling out the communications on this, but this will be coming. And the reason I bring it up is because the Dean's Office, and specifically Terry and Linda and I, and people like the Diversity and Inclusion Council and our RPT committee members are going to be a lot involved in this community building part. There are aspects here related to faculty and staff recognition, reward, and advancement, creating a more diverse and inclusive climate. Those are all embodied in this community piece. So our office will be very much engaged in this part of the strategic plan. And then I just wanted to wrap up by sort of just giving a bigger view of what it is that we actually do. So I really see our role as really acting as a communications device, helping to amplify the needs of our faculty and staff and our school chairs from the school level through the college up to the institute level, and trying to facilitate and streamline all the processes and procedures, trying to convey and communicate those ideas to our faculty and staff, and then trying to help guide them through sometimes very complex processes. So through this, we work primarily with the Provost's office. So this part of the org chart. We spend a lot of time working with Bonnie Ferry, who's Vice Provost for Graduate Education and Faculty Development, and also with Jennifer Harazi, who's the Associate Provost for Operations. So daily communication with them. We also, when we're talking about faculty or grievances involving faculty, we work with the ombuds, we work with the Associate Vice Provost for Conflict Resolution and Advocacy, and then also sometimes with GT Legal. On international initiatives, we work with the Vice Provost for International Initiatives, Eve Bartholow. And then we also work closely with the Vice President for Institute Diversity, Archie Irvin, and all of his team and staff there, including the advanced professors. So with that, I will take more questions. Thank you. Yes?
So in one of your early slides, you mentioned you also doing something on the international activity. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what that is?
Yeah, so it takes various forms. So when our faculty leave campus to work, for example, like at METS or in Shenzhen in the future, there are specific arrangements that need to happen. I can think of one example is when our faculty were employed in METS, it came to light only a couple of years ago that there was some conflict between the benefits Georgia Tech was providing and the benefits that were provided by the French government in METS. And so trying to work with Eve's office to reconcile those and to make sure that there was equity in compensation and benefits that were provided. And that gets very, very complicated in terms of tax implications. Also, when faculty leave campus, we need to know where they're going. So there's also usually just approvals if you're going to teach in Shenzhen, for example. And so we've learned a lot from the experience in METS, and I think the Shenzhen experience should go more smoothly, we're hoping. But we approve now just on a regular basis faculty who are going there for a semester, and their pay then, I believe, stops at Georgia Tech and is picked up in China for that semester.
You mentioned consistency as one of the principles. What do you see as your role in looking at the different schools and getting consistency in the RPT process? Like, what do you see from your perspective in terms of consistency?
It's an interesting question. So consistency, I think about consistency across the schools. So the college committee provides an opportunity for a case to be seen through different lenses because we're so interdisciplinary, for example. I can think of cases where a faculty member is maybe on the edge of a discipline, but their appointment is solely within a school, and it may be viewed, maybe the publication record is different in that discipline than is typical, in that school. But because that person is sort of on this edge, it's not viewed maybe with such a broad lens within the school. So then by the time it gets to the college, there can be some resetting that happens. We're very deliberate about who sits on the college committee so that we can offer diverse perspectives on that. But I also think about consistency year to year. So the way that our committee is composed, we have half the committee stays on for the next year. So we've got people who've got some historical experience there. They saw how the cases were reviewed the prior year. And so service is usually 2 years. Occasionally we'll have people who serve a bit longer. So we want to make sure that there's also consistency across years so there aren't wild swings in terms of expectations. And this same thing for academic professionals on that track and for research faculty. We have the same structure. Other questions? All right, I won't hold you then. If you've got informal questions, personal questions, you want to ask me, come on up. I'll be here for a while and can hang out and talk. Thank you for coming.